Today, I'm gonna build and test ancient inventions in Lego, from war machines and battle defenses to the first human attempts at flight. And we're gonna rate each one of them on the ingenuity scale from 1 to 5 light bulbs. Starting with the earliest and simplest invention, the wheel. Now believe it or not, the wheel wasn't actually invented to move things. It was actually invented to make things in the form of a potter's wheel, and that was one of the first wheels they made, which was basically just a heavy wheel that spun around on a stand so they could make cups and vases and bowls and stuff out of clay. So if we snap together 4 snot bricks on this little plate here, we can build up some rounded edges using bricks. Kind of just sloping down the sides using plates to round it over. And check it out. Now we have a wheel made completely out of square Lego pieces. On the ingenuity scale, I'd give this invention a 5 out of 5, because we use these things in almost everything. Transportation, a lot of other stuff. Next up, we have the Egyptian shadow. Essentially, it's just a large lever that has a bucket on one end and a counterweight on the other, which would allow the Egyptians to lift a water bucket out of the Nile and swing it over so they could water their fields. To draw water out of the river, they used a long, flexible stick, probably made out of wood, and we can just snap that together out of a few plates. So then essentially, this is just a lever, and they would tie a big heavy rock or a bag to the back of it to act as sort of a counterweight. That way they could easily dip their bucket down into the water, and then they could pull that off and dump it right into their crops. And as you can see, depending on where we put our little Technic hinge here, we can actually make it perfectly balanced. This reminds me of when I built the pyramids using different building methods. One of them actually used waterways and buoys to float the bricks down around the building site, and then they had a crane type thing that would lift them up a ramp to the top of the pyramid. Another reason I think the Egyptians were actually pretty smart, unless it was built by someone else. So on the ingenuity scale, I'd give this one 4 out of 5 bulbs. The next invention I want to build was one of the earliest devices used to measure wind force, and it's called an anemometer. And we're gonna use this leaf blower to test it. We're gonna build the version Da Vinci designed, but the original was actually invented back in 1450 by this guy named Leon Alberti Battista. I'm gonna start by building up a shorter base using plates and bricks, and then we're gonna build a tower on one side that kind of loops over like a C. The goal of this is to make it strong enough so that this part doesn't blow away, but there's gonna be a little swinging thing on one side and a scale to actually measure the wind. It doesn't sound as cool as it is, but trust me, it's pretty cool. I'm also adding some Technic beams on the inside of the base to hold this C-stand type thing together, because this needs to be pretty strong to withstand the force of the wind. The concept for this is pretty simple. We basically just have a little flap that literally just swings around in the wind, and then the bottom of that flap moves along an arc with a measurement system on it. So based on how hard the wind is blowing, you'll be able to see how far that moves up and read the measurement. Fun fact about Leonardo da Vinci, he was actually left-handed, so in order to not smudge his drawings, he would actually write from right to left, instead of left to right like is normal. All right, so we got our base right here. This thing is pretty strong. It's not falling over. So next step, we need to create our little flap right here. It's gonna hang down. I'm just gonna connect that with a few Technic pins at the top here. There we go. Look at that. And now we have this guy, which as you see when you blow on it, will follow an arc. So now all we need to add to this is just a curved ruler, and I'm gonna build that out of some little hinges. And we can actually just build up a long line of these, like this, to get that nice arch shape. And then each one of these bricks will actually be one of the units for measuring. As you see, I've added our little scale right here using a dry erase marker and some little Lego stickers that I cut up. And that'll actually give us a scale to measure our wind. And then the last thing I'm gonna add is this little wind direction measurer up here. And now we can finally test this thing out. This is how you actually measure wind force. So as you can see, if we blow it, the flap actually moves up the scale, and you can tell how strong the wind force is. That's about an 18. You can also see this little thing on top here. It'll actually directionalize, so whichever way it's pointing, you can tell the wind is blowing the opposite way. So as you can see, if I start here, it follows the air. That's pretty cool. And that's why we use different anemometers today. This next invention was also designed by Leonardo da Vinci, and it's the self-supporting bridge. To build this one, we're just gonna sandwich some 2x4 bricks in between 2 layers of strong plates. And now we have basically a Lego log. And the concept is being able to take some logs and create a bridge that's fully self-supporting, just like this. So everything kind of holds together with friction and doesn't break because it was made of logs. And the more weight that's on top of it, the stronger it actually is. And so if we link these together in a way where they kind of interlock at the top, we can create a self-supporting structure here. And then as you can see, the vertical beams are holding up the horizontal beams that go across right here. If we just do that one more time, there we have a self-supporting bridge. Da Vinci initially invented this to actually be a portable military bridge. But check that out. None of this is actually connected or locked together. It just kind of holds because of the pressure and all the tension on top of it. Ta-da! That's pretty cool. Don't look at that. On the ingenuity scale, I'd give this a 4 out of 5. It seems like it'd be a little hard to put together over water. Still a cool idea though. The next invention is actually from 2025 and it's called a stud measure. It's basically a tape measure for Lego builders that I invented, and it measures in both bricks and studs. You can see if we snap it down like this, we can measure bricks to see how high it is. And it's retractable. It even snaps down into the studs with its custom end piece so that you can easily measure your Lego builds. So if you want to get one for yourself, check it out at studmeasure.shop or click the link down in the description. These things are pretty cool. 5 out of 5. Guys, this next invention was actually created by Nikola Tesla. And if we start it up here and raise this little platform, it's actually a device that can harness free... Hello? Yeah. No, I haven't. Oh. Well, I was just... Okay. Yeah, so I can't show you this one. This is, I don't even know what this is. Let's build the next one. Next up, we're gonna build one of the earliest castle defenses. I call it a ladder shover. Da Vinci probably had another name for it, but basically it's a giant lever built into your castle wall, and when you lift up the bottom of it, it pushes any ladders on the outside of the wall off, so that no one can get into your castle, therefore protecting the castle from invaders. So for ours, we're gonna start by building up the castle wall using gray bricks, and then we'll build the lever with the fulcrum point on the inside. And then slope in the bottom of this wall, I'm actually just using a few of these little hinges with plate on top and some 6x6 tiles. And there we have our wall. Now the mechanism for this castle defense is actually super easy. It's just a giant lever that sits on the back. So as you see here, they would have built in some logs into the castle walls like I've done here. And then for our fulcrum point, I'm going to use a Technic piece and a pin, just like that. So then, if we grab a Technic lift arm, like this, we snap this guy right on here, and then we just need to build something that goes through the side of the castle through these 3 little holes we just built. And I threw some tiles in here to make it slide smoothly. So what I'm gonna do is literally just take a few of these little 2x10 brown plates and stick them through like this. And then connect these together, we're gonna use some more plates on the back, just to make it one big piece. And do the same thing on the front, except this one we're gonna make a little bit wider because this is gonna need to actually push the ladders off. So then if we connect the top of this using another one of those fancy Technic pieces like so, as you can see when we pull the bottom of this, it pushes out the front. So if we just extend that lever down towards the bottom a little bit with another lift arm, and they'd probably have some sort of pulley system on the bottom for leverage. And I'm just gonna build up one of those on the other side. And there we have our ladder shovers built up. So now, as you can see, here's how this would work. They'd have their ladders, you know, their siege ladders, that would go up on the walls, like that, so that the oncoming forces could climb over. We'll take our little crash test dummy ooblot, put them on there for scale. So when your oncoming army comes up the ladder, all you gotta do is push them off. It's as simple as that. This is a pretty good idea. So on the ingenuity scale, I'm gonna give this one 5 out of 5 light bulbs. Actually pretty smart. Let's build the next one. Another one of Da Vinci's creations, and possibly one of my favorites, was the giant crossbow. Kind of like this one I built here. This is a ballista from my Lego Siege Weapons versus Castle video. All right, so to make this work, all you gotta do is pull back your rubber band into this little notch here, right there. And that is right next to our release mechanism. Then you can load in your arrow in the front, and there's a little worm gear on the side that allows you to adjust the distance of how far it shoots. So then, if we wanna hit our crash test dummy up on the wall, we can just angle this like so, and all we gotta do is pull up our release, and it should shoot. Nice. This thing actually works pretty well. Although for practicality's sake, I'm gonna give it 3 out of 5 light bulbs. With the invention of the cannon, I don't think the giant crossbow is really necessary. But overall, it was still a really cool invention for its time. Finally, I'm gonna try and build the Da Vinci flying machine, also called an ornithopter. Now Lego's released a set of this already. You can see when you pull this trigger underneath how the wings and the tail actually move up and down. And the whole concept he based this machine off of was the ability to move a wing like a bat does. And as you can see here, if we lift up this lever on this side, the wing on the left moves up and down. But before I explain why this wouldn't actually work, let's get started on our flying machine. First, I'm gonna start by building the frame for the wings. And for those, I'm gonna make a skeleton out of these little Technic connectors, and then we'll cut some fabric to cover it so it'll actually look like a wing. Now that we got the frames for the wings built up, as you can see, these will flap like this, and we'll cover these in fabric. Next step is to build the frame in the center, which is kind of a weird triangle shape. We can build that out of Technic pins and Technic bricks. We can attach our wings like this. And and one over here. And I'm gonna use friction pins because the wings are already so heavy. There was also this loop on the inside for a person's body to actually sit inside of, so I'm gonna build that up and snap it right in the middle using some more of those cool Technic connectors. And then for the wings, as you can see, all I've done is just line these with Technic pieces. I also use some little bars like this, and I just simply cut out some fabric in the shape of wings and then attached it by poking little holes through and connecting it to these Technic little pins so that we can attach it to the frame. I've been working on the spring system for the wings. Now there weren't actually springs in the original design, so what I've done is essentially make some custom springs out of axles and a few springs I bought online. And now, as you can see, we have some shock absorber type things so that these wings will always float back up. And these, as you can see, are pretty strong. And then we have our top piece, which just goes right in here, and I've attached a little tail wing to that. You can also see this bottom spring in the back here. I just added a little actuator so that it would fit. So now I'm just gonna take some string and Lego pulleys, create a system with handles kind of like the one Da Vinci had, so a pilot could actually move these wings up and down and control it. Once we do that, all we gotta do is just add a few details, and this thing should be good to go. I'd say it's looking pretty cool though. I'm sure you guys are wondering by now, how come I've never seen a flying machine in real life? Well, that's because Da Vinci never built it. You see, the problem with Da Vinci's flying machine is that birds are designed a little bit different than humans. Their muscles are able to flap their wings at a way faster speed than we would ever be able to do, and they're lightweight. Whereas anything he could build back in the day was super heavy and would have taken a lot of energy input for not a lot of lift on the output. So now essentially what I'm doing, I have my prototype frame built up and I'm removing all the Technic bricks to replace them with some better looking regular bricks. Unless they need like Technic holes, in which case on the front here, I just built my own linkages using 1x2 Technic bricks. So for the pulley system, we're gonna make it so that both wings can flap down and our tail can move up and down like this by just pushing and pulling the leg straps, which are on the actual model. So essentially what I'm doing here is using a frictionless Technic pin in one of these little pulley wheels. We're gonna stick this right here and connect all the wings to a single string. So that way, as you can see, when you pull this, the tail moves. If we hook this up to the wing as well, via this little loop here, we should be able to access both by just pulling it downward. Actually, that doesn't really work because that makes it so that you have to tighten one to move the other. So we're gonna need to use two pulleys. All right, guys, here you can see after hours of hard work, we have the Brick Science version of the ornithopter. I built this little stand here, but as you can see, it has its little straps on the back, and this thing is actually functional with the pulley system. If you pull the stirrup that typically the guy piloting this, his foot would sit inside of, pull that down, the wing actually flaps. Check it out. We got some really, really good range of motion here. I even added some springs and rubber bands on the front just to make it a little easier to pull, which they wouldn't have had back in the day, but I have the benefit of being able to use that in my model. You see the other one works just the same way. You got all the ropes coming down from the wings, going over a single pulley, and then through this little feeder system back here, where the stirrup is attached at the back. And in Da Vinci's model, that's actually how you pilot this thing. And there's even one at the front for the tail feather. As you can see, this guy flaps right there in the back. Check it out. And this one has a shock absorber on it as well that's acting as a spring so this thing can move up and down smoothly. This is a size comparison to the Lego model. As you can see, each one is just a little bit different. Mine's quite a bit bigger, pretty proud of that, and I do like the wings. I think those are super cool. And now this thing will be added to the Brick Science collection.